Dear students, welcome to all of you. Today we are here to discuss adaptation of roots for food storage and respiration. First, the introduction. Roots are axial multicellular structures of the sporophytes of vascular plants which usually occur underground, have strictly apical elongation growth and generally have gravitropic responses which range from positive gravitropism to diagravitropism combined with negative phototropism. The root is the underground part of the plant that grows away from the light and is in intimate contact with the soil. The root lacks green color and is much branched. The root and its branches make up the root system of a plant. In all healthy plants, there is a kind of physiological or functional balance between the root system and the shoot system. The root system is the descending portion of the plant axis. When a seed germinates, a radicle is the first organ to come out. The root elongates to form primary or the taproot. It gives off lateral branches, secondary and tertiary roots, and thus forms the root system. The root branches through large and deep areas in the soil and anchors the plant very firmly. The root also plays another vital role of absorbing water and mineral salts from the soil and transporting them upwards. The features by which we can recognize roots are non-green due to absence of chlorophyll, not divided into nodes and internodes, the absence of leaves and buds, positively geotropic that is grow towards gravity, positively hydrotropic that is grow towards water, negatively phototropic that is grow away from light. Now the types of root systems. The two common types of root systems are taproot system and fibrous root system. First, the taproot system. The taproot system consists of a single main central root, the taproot, with branch roots arising from it. The taproot is conspicuous, larger than all other roots of the system. It is thick above and tapers gradually. It is formed from an actively growing primary root. Taproot usually penetrate great depths and are woody. Such roots are also called the deep feeders. It is the main root system of dicots, for example, gram, China rose, neem. Fibrous root system. In many plants, the root system consists of a cluster of cylinder fiber-like roots. Each of these bears numerous wiry side branches which cover and come in contact with the enormous area of the soil. Such a root system is called fibrous. There is no one root more prominent than others in the fibrous root system. The fibrous roots are shallow surface feeders. They do not branch profusely or shallow and separate horizontally, hence cannot provide strong anchorage. Fibrous root system is the main root system of monocots, for example, maize, grasses, wheat. The types of roots. According to their origin, the roots are generally divided into three kinds: primary, secondary, and adventitious. First, the primary roots. On germination of the seed, the lower end of the axis of the embryo, that is radicle, elongates and grows directly downwards into the soil, forming the first root of the plant. It is called the primary root. In most plants, it persists throughout life. It serves as the principal root of the plant. Secondary roots. The primary root, as it grows vertically downwards, gives out branch roots from its sides. The branch roots in turn bear side roots of the third order, tertiary roots, and so on. All these later root branches are commonly termed as secondary roots. Now the adventitious roots. In many plants, such as the cereals and grasses, the primary root is short-lived. It is soon replaced by additional roots which spring from the base of the stem. All such roots which arise from the organs other than the roots and hypocotyls are called adventitious roots. Maize, wheat, asparagus, and pandanus are some of the common examples of adventitious roots. Now, the regions of root. Histologically, developing roots have been categorized into 4 zones of development. These are not strict zones but rather regions of cells that gradually develop into those of the next region. The zones vary widely as far as extent and levels of development. A longitudinal section of root shows region of root cap, region of cell division, region of cell elongation, and region of cell maturation. Now we will discuss the root modifications. Most plants produce either a taproot system in which there is a single large root with smaller branch roots, or a fibrous root system in which there are many smaller roots of similar diameter. Some plants, however, have entry-giving root modifications with specific functions in addition to those of encourage and absorption. When a permanent change occurs in the structure of a root to perform new function suitable for the environment, it is called root modification. Roots of plants are generally meant for encourage and absorption of water and nutrients from soil. However, in certain plants, roots perform additional functions, particularly as storage organ of photosynthesis. Roots are also modified to provide additional support to weak stems or to trees which are massive. In some cases, roots may help in gaseous exchange or for floating, for example in aquatic plants. Consequently, the root morphology and structure undergoes certain modifications to perform these additional functions. Now we will discuss the modification of taproot. Sometimes the normal taproots undergo modifications in order to perform additional functions like storage of food material and water, vegetative propagation, respiration, perennation, and other changes in form due to fungal and bacterial infections. Some modification of taproots are storage or fleshy taproots, breathing roots are pneumatophores, nodulated roots are tuberculated roots, mycorrhizic or coralloid roots, reproductive roots, thalloid or thallus-like roots. First, the storage roots are fleshy taproots. Majority of the taproots store food in the form of the starch. In some cases, the whole of the root becomes swollen and stores excessive amount of food for the purpose of carrying the plant over winter or summer when all the aerial parts die. Some common examples include carrots, radishes, turnips, and beetroot. These roots assume various shapes. These are conical, fusiform, napiform, and lobed roots. First, the conical. In this case, the storage root is broad above and gradually tapers towards its growing tip. It assumes a cone-like shape as in carrots, Ducus carota. In carrots, the stem appears disc-like at the broad end of the root and bears a cluster of leaves. Such discoid stems are called reduced stems. The stem projects only slightly above the ground and the leaves appear to arise from the soil surface. Such leaves are called as radical leaves. Hypocotyle may also become swollen. Secondary roots or branches may arise all over the swollen root portion. They are, however, abundant on the lower narrow region. Fusiform. These storage roots are swollen in the middle and become gradually narrow towards their base and apex. The stem is reduced and bears radical leaves. Such spindle-shaped roots are found in the English radishes, Raphanus sativus. The swollen portion below the reduced stem is derived from the hypocotyls. The swollen root portion bears secondary roots that are thin and thread-like lateral branches, napiform. In this case, the storage region assumes a spherical shape at its base and it abruptly narrows down or becomes thin towards the apex. The swollen portion below the reduced stem is derived from the hypocotyl and does not bear branch roots. The rest of the portion, which represents the modified root, gives out secondary roots. The best example is the turnip, that is Brassica napes. Now the lobed roots. In some Cucurbitaceae, the storage roots become lobed and assume huge form. In Echinocystis lobata, lobed root is as big as man's body and weighs up to 50 pounds. In Acanthocystis horrid, the root grows 40 feet below the soil and becomes thick and irregularly swollen due to storage of water and food. Dear students, now we will discuss the breathing roots are pneumatophores. In some plants that grow in swamps and bogs or in marshy places such as Rhizophora and Soneraceae, specialized roots arise from the branches of taproot and grow above the soil as knee-like appendages. These plants usually do not receive enough oxygen for their normal metabolic activities. They thus undergo various adaptations to ensure sufficient aeration. These negatively geotrophic roots branch and project above the surface of the poorly aerated soil. These branches are known as pneumatophores. The surface of the pneumatophore is covered by a thick layer of cork formed by the underlying cork cambium, that is phloem. The cork has many small lenticels through which exchange of gases takes place. The cortex is parenchymatous with large intercellular spaces. The stele has many collateral and end arc vascular bundles. In addition to pneumatophores, the lower portions of the stilt roots in Rhizophoraceae have spongy cortex to facilitate the aeration of the subterranean parts. The aerial roots of orchids have a water-absorbing tissue known as velamen. Some special structures called nematodes are also present in the velamen. These structures consist of groups of cells with dense spiral wall thickenings extending from the epidermis to the endodermis. Nematodes help in the exchange of gases during the periods when the root is saturated with water. Such roots are also known as respiratory roots. These are modified branches of taproots and should not be regarded as adventitious roots. Now the nodulated roots are tuberculated roots. These roots are found in all the members of pea family. In these plants, the branches of the taproot bear distinct swellings or nodules or tubercles containing bacteria in them, which are capable of fixing free nitrogen of the air. The nodules are irregular in shape and the bacteria present in them absorb free nitrogen of the air in the soil and convert it into the compounds containing nitrogen. These nitrogen compounds are nutrients that are essential for the growth of the plant. So the bacteria do not harm the plant, instead they provide food to the host plant and in return get shelter and some ready-made food. These bacteria enter the root through root hair and migrate into the outer cortex, where they induce excessive localized cell division that leads to the formation of nodules on the roots. The legumes are unable to consume the entire nitrogenous compounds. The excessive ammonia remains in the nodules and enriches the soil. Thus, they increase the fertility of the soil. Now the mycorrhizic or coralloid roots. These are commonly found in the gymnosperms, for example, Pinus, Cycas. In Pinus, the younger portions of the taproot and its branches become closely infested by the hyphae of a fungus. These hyphae form closed mats around the external surface of the root. Such roots lack root hair and become repeatedly branched and look like corals. In cycas, corallite roots are infested by a blue-green algae. They become negatively geotropic and branch repeatedly and appear blue-green in color. In pinus, the fungal hyphae around the roots help in water absorption. The number of hyphae is much more than the root hair. Some of these hyphae also penetrate the root tissue and obtain some ready-made food. This mutually beneficial partnership between a fungus and a root of a higher plant is called mycorrhiza. Among the angiosperms, such roots are found in ulnus, coarcus, and beech roots. Reproductive roots. In some plants, for example, Dalbergia sisu, the taproot bears buds on its surface. These buds grow out into new shoots that emerge through the soil and bear branches and green leaves. These shoots can be easily transplanted as they develop their own roots. Thalloid or thallus-like roots, flat-end, lobed, dorsiventral, and thallus-like roots having distinct root caps are found in curious-looking aquatic angiosperms belonging to genera Zelenidium and Griffithilla. They are also green and photosynthetic and are fixed to the substratum by means of curious outgrowths called heptera. These plants are found in running water whose currents may become torrential during the rainy season. Dear students, now we will discuss the modification of the adventitious roots. Adventitious roots do not develop from the radicle. Instead, they arise from organs other than the radicle. They may arise from the stem or the leaves. These roots are normally fibrous and are surface feeders, but sometimes they become specialized or modified to perform specialized functions or storage, support, photosynthetic, vegetative propagation, etc. Various modifications of adventitious roots are adventitious roots as storage organs. The adventitious roots of some plants become modified to act as storage organs. They store food and water. As a result, the root or a portion of it becomes enlarged and fleshy. Such roots are called fleshy or storage roots. They assume various kinds of shapes and sizes and are accordingly classified or named. Some kinds of fleshy roots are root tubers, fasciculated roots, moniliform roots, annulate roots, palmate roots. First, the root tubers. These are swollen or fleshy storage roots that usually arise from the stem and occur singly. For example, Ipomea betatas, ranunculus ficaria, and curcuma ameda. In Ipomea betatas, creeping stems bear swollen and spindle-shaped roots singly at each node or only at some of the nodes. In Ranunculus ficaria, the ends of some adventitious roots become swollen into tubers. In Curcuma ameda, the ends of some adventitious roots that arise from the nodes of underground stem become swollen. Some designate such roots as nodulous roots. Number second, fasciculated roots. In Dahlia, the clusters of adventitious roots arising from the same node become swollen and form fascicles or tubers. Such clusters of tubers are called fasciculated tuberous roots. They are also exemplified by asparagus, in which clusters of tuberous roots develop from the branches of adventitious roots. In Nymphoides aquatica, the clusters of tuberous roots develop from the nodes of stolons that arise as branches from the perennial rootstock. These roots are banana-like in shape. In all these cases, the food is stored in cortical parenchyma. Fasciculated roots also occur in Orchis muscula. Number third, moniliform roots. In this case, The adventitious roots that arise from the stem become swollen at regular intervals and give a beaded appearance. Such beaded structures are designated as moniliform. For example, Mamordica, Bacilla alba. Number 4, annulate roots. In Syphilis, the adventitious roots develop series of annular or ring-like thickenings throughout their length. Such storage roots are called annulated roots. Number 5, palmate roots. In Orchis latifolia that grows in west temperate Himalayas at 8,000 to 12,000 feet, the tuberous roots assume a palm-like appearance. These swollen roots branch and look like the human palm. The adventitious roots that help in floating and respiration. From the lower nodes of floating stems in Ludwigia peruviana or Josia peruviana, Ludwigia adescendanus, Sesbania aculeata, and many other emergent hydrophytes, there arise modified adventitious roots which grow erect and protrude above water. These roots are white in color and possess numerous pores on them. They help in gaseous exchange and superior transport of oxygen to the submerged and underground organs. They help in respiration and also keep up the buoyancy of the plant. They can be compared to the pneumatophores developed by swam plants like Rhizophora. Stilt roots are brace roots. When root arises from lower nodes and enter in soil obliquely, they are known as stilt roots. For example, maize, sugarcane, pandanus. Prop roots are pillar roots. When root arises from branches of plant and grows downwards towards soil, it functions as supporting stem for the plant. For example, banyan. Buttress root. Such roots appear from the basal part of stem and spread in different directions in the soil. For example, Ficus, Bombyx, Terminalia. It is a characteristic feature in tropical rainforests. Climbing roots. These roots arise from nodes and help the plant in climbing. For example, money plant, that is pothos, beetle, black pepper, Tacoma. Foliar roots are epiphyllous roots. When roots arise from leaf, they are called as foliar roots. For example, Bryophyllum. Sucking roots are hastoral roots or parasitic roots. In parasitic plants, roots enter into the stem of host plant to absorb nutrition from host. For example, Dendrocuscuta viscum. Hygroscopic roots. These are found in epiphytes, especially in orchids, and help in absorption of moisture from the atmosphere using a special tissue called velamen. For example, Orchis benda. Assimilatory roots. The aerial roots of Tinospora and submerged roots of Trapa become green and synthesize food. Podostemon also has green assimilatory roots. Dear students, now we will discuss the functions of roots. First, the primary functions of roots. The functions which all normal roots have to perform are called their primary functions. These are: roots absorb water by imbibition and osmosis. Under conditions of high evaporation of water from the leaves, the passive absorption of water by imbibitional forces apparently exceeds osmotic absorption. Osmosis takes place through root hair. Root hair increases the absorptive area of the root, make intimate contact with the soil particles, and constantly enter new regions of the soil. Roots absorb nutrient ions and molecules as a result of simple diffusion and active absorption. The upward movement of absorbed water and mineral nutrients is through the xylem of the root. The roots fix the plant firmly with the soil. Now, the secondary functions of roots. These are functions performed by the specialized or modified tap or adventitious roots. These are, they store food and water, for example, in carrot, radish, asparagus, dahlia. They act as props and stilts for weak stems and give additional support, for example, prop roots of banyan and pandanus and stilt roots of zea mays. They help weak stemmed plants to climb up supports, for example, clinging roots of ivy, beetle, pothos and ticoma. The parasitic roots of cuscuta help the plant to obtain ready-made food and also water from the host stem. The root nodules of leguminous plants contain nitrogen-fixing bacteria that can fix free nitrogen of the air. The hygroscopic roots of orchids help them to absorb moisture directly from the air. The pneumatophores of the breathing roots help in respiration. The roots of sweet potato help in vegetative propagation because they bear adventitious buds. The leaf roots of bryophyllum, the swollen and food-laden roots also help the biennials and perennials to perennate during the unfavorable periods. The green and photosynthetic roots help in photosynthesis, for example, Podostemon tinospora. The roots of many grasses act as soil binders and save the soil from soil erosion. Some roots bear fungal hyphae to perform mycorrhizae. Such roots help in absorption of nitrogen and phosphorus from organic sources, for example, pinus and quercus. In water plants, the roots may serve as balancers and also keep up the buoyancy of the plant. They store air in the air spaces present in the root cortex. The contractile roots help the underground stems to go deep into the soil and thus remain safe from unfavorable season. Dear students, we have discussed over here structure and various types of roots. We have also discussed various adaptations of roots. Dear students, we have also discussed the primary and secondary functions of roots. Thank you very much. God bless you.